Tabletop role-playing games. I thought that was something you played in your basement with a bunch of weirdo friends and Cheeto fingers.
Dangerously cheesy.
Not so. Gary Gaz B from the Unconventional GM's YouTube channel and also one half of the UK's premier RPG tabletop podcast, What Would the Smart Party Do? He has a plethora of experience
We got a plethora of sandwiches for you.
going to gaming conventions, gaming events, pretty much anything where you're not just sitting in your basement with your weirdo friends. Let's have him tell you why you should go to a tabletop gaming convention and everything else you need to know. Let's go make that claim to game. True confession. I have never been to a live gaming event at the time of this talk.
What are you doing with your life?
I don't know. Maybe I'm taking care of kids under the age of 9. Regardless, I want to go to a convention. We have a lot of really great conventions here in the US, PAX Unplugged, Gen Con. There's, I think, several other PAXs. There's an Origins conference. It's all over the place. I think I live here I don't think, I know I live here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And they recently had the Gygax. What's it called? Luke Gygax put on a...
Then we have Gary Con.
Gary Con. I was looking at your name on there, and I was like,
I should get free invites, frankly. I'm quite insulted.
Yeah, you should get a free invite to Gary Con. So, there's cons everywhere. But you told me in a previous conversation that you've been to tons of conferences in your gaming career, in your lifetime. Tell me a little bit about what you love about them. What makes them worth going to instead of just playing a home game with your friends, which is fine in itself?
Yeah, well, I might flip the script on you a little bit. When you say you've not been to any, have you been to get local game store events or anything like that, or just literally? Oh, wow, okay.
I go into my local game stores and nerd out with the people who work there and talk about all the games that I love, but I've never actually signed up for a game because I've always been of that mindset. Like, I can do that myself.
Right.
I can run that myself. And I think I'm missing out.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So the thing is with events is they're a mixed bag. So that's the first thing you've got to take. I mean, I know a lot of people are really comfortable with their home group or whatever and just don't want to risk stranger danger or perhaps worried about how things might work out. So there is a slight element of that when you would do anything. But the rewards are quite great. So, for example, my co-host that I have on Unconventional GMs, Guy, I met him through going through a convention, for example, and that sort of thing. So it's exposing yourself to a bunch of new people, new ideas, new ways of playing, different games, all kinds of things. And there's all kinds of different sizes and shapes. I'm sure we can get into that. But for me, it is that meeting other people. So you can kind of get comfy in your group, but it's like having a burger for your dinner every day. And you might love burgers.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger.
And that's great, and I'm happy for you. But after 10 years, do you still want a burger, or do you want to try a curry or a lasagna or something, a salad maybe? So you might have a meal that you don't like, but I'm guaranteed if you eat enough meals, you'll find something you like. So that's the beauty of going to different convention events, is that you get different styles. Also, you get to experience different people's play styles and how they do things. So either as a player or as a GM, you can pick up tips and hints and see how people do things. You might say how people do things and go, I don't want to do that. I don't agree with your style of play, or it's just not to my preference, or whatever it might be. It's a way of connecting with people, about finding out games you might not otherwise know about getting real experience of things that you haven't experienced before. So, for example, if you want to play a game and you've seen it on the shelves, or maybe you've read it and just think, I really like Apocalypse World as a classic example. A lot of people have read that and gone, okay, everybody tells me this is amazing. I've read the book, still not quite sure what I do. But you could go to an event, get someone to run the game for you who's really experienced with it, and then you'll have a really good insight into whether that game's for you or not, or it might open up an all new world to you. Or you might think, okay, I've tried it now, and that's not really something I'm down for. But it's a way of experiencing new and different things and people.
I heard a few things in what you just said. So, connecting to people, learning about strategies for how you would run a game or play in a game that you might want to, or to go play a game that you've never played before and don't find yourself playing it with your home group, or maybe don't have the right group of people to do it with. What's a game you did that with? What's a game that you're like, you wanted to play forever, and then finally it was being run at a convention and you're like, sign me up?
It's probably less so these days because I play a lot online. I've got the Unconventional YouTube channel. We play lots of different things there. And I've been going to events for so long now, like easily 30 years, if not more. I can't tell you what the original games were that I want, but like in the early days, it was more or less anything because I had quite a small set of games that I played. And then you go to a convention. This is before the days of the internet, like your younger listeners might have to cast their minds back, or this is the before times before you were even born. But we didn't. You can just go on like a website and buy things. You had to go to an event, and this was a prime thing for conventions back in the day, was to buy things. Like you'd find out what was actually available, because if you hadn't read about it in a magazine, like you wouldn't know. So you could pick up games even for purchase was a good reason to go to a convention back in maybe the 80s or 90s. And then obviously to play as well. So I think the main one I've tried to play that I've still not had a satisfactory game from, that's one I can think of, is Mage the Ascension, or one of the versions of the White Wolf Mage game, where you play a magician and you pull together spheres of magic and can basically bend reality and create any spell you want given certain restrictions. I've always wondered, like, how do you do that? How do you make that good? How's it compelling when you can change reality, that kind of thing? And unfortunately, as yet, I've still not yet had the experience, but I'm searching for it. If anyone out there is thinking of a new Mage game, do let me know. But it is a way of checking things out. And then the conclusion I've come to with Mage, for example, is it's too much hard work to get a good experience out of it. And there's many other games, so I'd rather play something else. But it saved me having to learn it and try and get people to sign up for a campaign and run it for a home group, and us try and fumble our way through it, for example.
I've heard of Mage the Ascension, and I have some people that have tried to get me to play it. Now, when you said that you haven't had a satisfactory experience in the bending of reality, are you talking about like you've played the game and the storytelling didn't feel like it matched that level of like gravity of a situation where all of reality is bending?
It's the what do you do? So any game you play, like what's the premise? What do players do in that game? That's the first thing I want to know, and why I get upset with some games that I read when I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this setting. Again, it's another older game, but Nephilim was a really interesting game. We had lots of past lives, and you could create a character that was used to be a Babylonian princess and then an East End criminal, and maybe it was a knight in Charlemagne's empire. It's like, I've made this really cool, interesting character. Now, what do I do? And that question was never really answered for me. And in Mage, it's kind of, you can do what you want. So we were presented in the session I remember from Gen Con UK with some kind of murder mystery. And I tried to use some magic to do something. She's like, oh, why don't you just roll enigmas and find out who the murderer is? It's like, okay, I'll do that then. And that, like, any obstacle we could just defeat. And so it's like, well, where's the challenge then? What are we supposed to be doing that's compelling for me? Because I've got something I need to do that's a challenge, and I can't just solve with magic, perhaps, or requires inventive uses of magic over a period of time. And it wasn't there. And the trouble I've had at convention games with some White Wolf people back in the day, in the olden times, hopefully it's better now, was they really took the storytelling thing to heart. So they would tell you stories, and I, as a player, want to join in. Now, some people are happy going and playing a convention game and basically absorbing a story and occasionally rolling some dice. I'm more of an active player, and I want to join in on whatever's happening. So for me, that's not my sort of thing. And that's not to say that that's how all Mage games are played. I'd like to think it isn't. But I've had several experiences of it, and each time I'm struggling to see what's my premise. What am I invested in as a character? What do I want to achieve? What's stopping me doing that? And I haven't seen a really interesting way of doing it yet. Not, which isn't to say it's not out there. It's just I haven't seen it yet.
So this is interesting. So you had an experience at a convention where it felt like what you wanted to do was sort of pushed to the side. Uh, as a GM, when you have players, how do you help them find their premise and also give them agency, and not just tell them what they should be doing, but allowing them to explore the game?
Well, I guess my lead into this is an anecdote I'll tell you from, I think it's 2000. It was at Manchester. It was the UK Gen Con was there for 1 year. And they had the RPGA, I think it was, that organised all the games. And they did that in a way where they got everybody in a massive scrum, and it's like, who wants to play Call of Cthulhu? And like loads of hands would go up, and then they try and put people in a game. And who wants to play Dungeons and Dragons? Okay, and they do that sort of thing. And they deliberately split people up. So if you went with your buddies from home, you wouldn't be allowed to play with them because there was some kind of point scoring thing in the RPG that we didn't care about. We just wanted to play with our friends. But like, oh no, you might game the system, so you're not allowed to play together. So they forcibly moved into different groups, and there's more I could go into with that. But it was an unpleasant experience and frustrating. And I confronted the organizer at the end of it to say, here's all the things wrong with your system, and the way like this works at Command, it just isn't good enough. I'm unhappy. These are my reasons. And to his credit, he stood there for a good half an hour, however long the conversation lasted, and took all that. But in the end said, well, if you think it should be done differently, why don't you do it? Like, you show other people how it's done then if you've got a better idea. I was like, oh, fair point, actually. I'll do that. So it was from then that I started GMing at conventions. And I mentioned that story because in my mind immediately then was like, right, well, what do I want? If I was a player, what would I like to see from the games? And I'm going to demonstrate how you can provide that as a GM, and hopefully over time, other people will pick up on that, and you'll share ideas, and there's a higher chance of me getting the games I want to play if I show people how to run them the way I like, which again is a preference thing to a certain degree, but there's also some behaviors that are worthwhile regardless. So for my games at conventions, the first thing I have is a strong premise. So we know what the mission is. That's basically, it's like you have to go and get this thing, you have to rescue this princess, you have to stop the invaders taking over the castle, whatever it is, in whatever system or game you're playing, there's a strong premise. And then I often lead my adventures based on the characters. So the stuff on the character sheet that you have should be directly relevant to the game you're playing, or particularly the session you're playing. So if you have enemy Black Alan Mead written on your sheet, the pirate Black Alan Mead should turn up in that session. Otherwise, why is it on there? And that sort of thing. So you can direct all the advantages, disadvantages, whatever background story you want to put on there, relevant to things that are going to come up in the session. Or they're giving players the opportunity to hit those buttons and go, oh, this guy's interesting, or I've got this sword called Dorita's Red Tail Whaler. Where does that come from? What's all that about? I said, well, someone's going to turn up and ask for it back in a minute because you took it off his father or something. So you just embed your characters with some hooks. So you don't want to overwhelm people, because quite often a convention session's 2 to 4 hours, and there's only so much you can get in, especially if you've got 5 or 6 players. But if each player's got a couple of things that are hooks that tie directly to the scenario, and we know what we're doing when we set up, we say, okay, we're playing Deadlands, you're the good guys, there's ghosts and weird stuff around here, and you're going to this town because it's haunted, and the reverend at the church has sent you a letter saying, please help us, no one else can. Right. You're the white hats, you're the good guys, you're there to help people, you need to solve a ghost problem. Everybody knows what the mission is. Good. Everybody signed up for it. Let's go and do that.
So this leads me to another question that we were talking about back and forth in email. Sometimes you have some interesting personalities at the table. Right? And what do you do when you have a player in one of your games at a convention that doesn't want to pick up that ball? I think that was the term that Robin Laws used when I was chatting with him almost a year ago. He was saying, if there's a premise, if there's a story, if this is the mission, you pick the ball up and you run with it. You don't slap the ball down and say, I'm going to go back to the tavern back at our home base.
Mm-hmm.
How do you redirect somebody in a way that still makes them motivated to want to play and not just shut down or give you the lip?
Right. So it can be tricky. I've chatted to Robin quite a few times now. I'm big on his premise acceptance. I think that's right. So the first thing to say is that there's a lot of problems in game or in session that are solved by having a grown-up adult human interaction with the other person. And loads of people try and, if I use this system, maybe that'll fix it. Or, yeah, my players are having a real hard time role-playing with this system. What system can I use to get them to role-play? Well, the system's not going to do that for you. Quite often as the GM as well, the other players won't say anything. They'll look to you as like social secretary. They want to arbiter things. So if someone's being unpleasant, they'll kind of all just shrink back and look at the character sheets and wait for you to sort it out. But all these things are solved by speaking to someone. So if you've laid out your premise clearly and someone's refusing to engage, I would have a little break and say, sorry, perhaps I wasn't clear. let me reiterate what we're trying to do here. Like, are you happy with that? And you might have to get to a point where if someone's just unwilling to play the game that they've signed up for, and you're telling them what they are, and you're being reasonable, you've got a decision to make. It's like, well, this is the game we are playing. You can either join in with that or not. But if you're not doing, you're going to get very bored because I'm not going to include you. I'm not going back to the tavern to talk about what's happening there, and I don't really want any interruptions or anything like that. So maybe this isn't the game for you. And we can talk about safety tools and things like that, but the key one that me and Guy use all the time is open table. So if someone wants to leave the game table at any time for any reason, that's fine. There's historically been a problem with people thinking I can't leave, or it'll be awkward, or I'll spoil things, or what should I do? Like, honestly, just start out with your safety tools and say, open table. If this game's just not for you, or something's come up, or whatever it is, you can just leave. The only thing we ask is, if you're not coming back, let us know so we don't hang around waiting for you. But that, if you've got that already set out as a tool, then when someone's being awkward, you can say, look, I don't know what the misunderstanding is here. I can rephrase it for you. I can see, like, what else are you looking to see? You can try and, but you have to do it just human to human. You have to break out of game time and being GM player and say, look, buddy, this is the game we play. This is what you signed up for. This is what was on the description of the sheet. I've laid it out. Everybody else seems happy. What gives? Can you join in with that? Are you happy to? And if you're not, you can always walk away if you want, but the choice is yours. But we're playing this game, and that's how it's going to be.
Have you ever had people take you up on the open table rule?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, you do get some people who just like are then sullen and go, well, I suppose I'll do this. Like, and they don't want to be railroaded, they call it, or have their agency who are just like, oh, you're telling me what to do. I was like, no, I've set up a framework of what we're doing, and that if you're playing soccer, as you guys would call it, but football, like, you kick the ball with your foot. If you're saying you want to pick it up and run with it, that's not the rule of this game. So go and play rugby or do American football, whatever it is. But there's certain boundaries that you have. Like, we're all agreeing to do this thing, and if you're not going to do that or be disruptive, go away. I've had people I had a guy who was drunk, who started screwing up, like, the handouts on the table and swearing and just being rude. And I had to tell him to leave. And it can be an awkward conversation. Not everybody's as confident as perhaps I am, and I'm not as confident as some people think I am, perhaps. But ultimately, you've got organisers you can go to help you. You can ask the people around the table. You can try and appeal to them generally. I mean, in particular, when we had a Norwegian guy, happily, he went to get a beer and got lost and couldn't find his way back to the gaming table. So that problem solved itself. But,
that sounds like the premise to another tabletop game. The Norwegian guy got lost. We got to go save him.
Many stories about the Norwegians, yeah. But yes, you can just get people who just hang around because they feel like they have to be there, or they don't feel they've got anything else they can do or to play, but they're going to be awkward about it. I have regular breaks in my game, so after an hour, if it still looks like they're not happy, I can say, you don't seem like you're enjoying yourself. Don't feel like you have to be here. It's like, no, I've signed up. Just have to explain it. You're not helping anyone. You're not happy. I'm not happy. Nobody else is improving their session that they're having by having you being sulky about it. So just go. Unfortunately, all too often you have people who will stay, like, begrudgingly because they've signed up for their session. It's like, no one's happy with this, including you. So what? Like, why would you hang around? Like, just go and do something else. Check out the trade hall, go to the bar, do whatever you want, get a burger.
A Krabby Patty.
Read your Kindle. I've done that before now.
Talk to the Norwegian guy when you find him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've left games before now, and it used to be like a weird thing, like really back in the good old days, like I say, sort of the 90s. You had to almost make excuses, and I was like, text a friend to come and say, oh, I've got car trouble, so that I could leave. And the GM's going, oh, that's a real shame, but we need you for this. It's like, you clearly don't. There's 7 people in this game, and it's moving like molasses on a cold day. Like, you don't need anybody, including me here. So
do you have a sweet spot for the number of people that you like to run a game for?
Yeah, well, it depends on the system, but broadly for a traditional style game, like 5 players is my max. And I go for 4 normally, and certainly for more narrative or indie games, I tend to go 4 players. And I think, yeah, there's a weird thing with conventions that 4 hours and 6 players has become a thing. I don't know when it first started. I don't know who invented that number or whether it was arbitrarily come across. But that seems to be like a standard in most big conventions, and I have no idea why. Like, games don't need to be 4 hours. You can pack a lot into less than that. And if naturally you've come to the end of a good session after 3, call it. Say, like, look, guys, this is like everything we had, and it seems like we had a great time. Let's do that. Otherwise, you can feel like You know, when you see some movies that have DVD extras, so you watch it for the extra content and think, actually, the original movie was great. I see why they edited it. Like, I don't need all this extra padding.
Yeah.
I've had a game where someone tried to split it into 2 sessions because he was trying to give us our money worth in inverted commas, and that just
Oh,
made
okay.
a 4-hour session last 6 hours. And again, I could have been playing a different game. So yeah, and having 6 players, if you think about it, if you're spending say 5 minutes with each player and there's 6 of them, that's already half an hour. So once you've got everybody to do something twice or had a bit of interaction with everybody, your first hour's gone already. I mean, it's a lot. Even with 5 players, it's not much less, but it's significantly less. That it feels like more people have got more time, and it's a bit of a tiebreaker, so you don't get a 3v3 situation where it's like, are we going to go save the princess or are we staying in the pub? Like, an odd number of players gives you a tiebreaker, so they're going to decide on something quite often. I mean, ideally they accept the premise and go and save the princess anyway, but like, I think 5's for me it's the maximum. There seems to be like some guys who've got this. Oh, I can run for 7. I can run for 8. It's like, I can, but it's not as much fun as running for 4 or 5 because the people involved in the game get more airtime, you get more screen time, you get to do more. Like, it's just much more fun. So why would you run for 8?
I ran for 9 one time because I thought it would be fun. I was mentally and emotionally exhausted at the end of that game. It was a level 18 Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition game
Right.
because I was like, nobody ever goes past 15. Like, level 15 is where all characters die. But I was like, not today. We're going to start on 18 and we will die if we have to die. It was a lot.
Yeah. And you've got to think that like people switch off and lose interest. Like, I'm keen on trying to get people to stay focused on a game, but if you've got a lot of people in your game, just naturally anyone will lose interest. If it's been 20 minutes since they've had an interaction, the temptation to look at your phone or chat about the football or say, oh, have you been to the trade hall? I just generally talk about something that's not what's happening at the table is just great because we've all got quite short attention spans. And you can try and listen to other players and be interested in the story, but if there's a lot of you, it's just a long time waiting to be involved. Now, if you're the sort of player that likes hearing the story, as I mentioned earlier or alluded to, you're probably fine with that. But for more active players or people who want to be involved, that's the death knell. They'll just lose interest, and it's not your fault as a GM at the table. Probably, it's just that you've got too many people that you need to try and keep track of all the time, constantly.
How do you pace breaks at a convention, right? If it's 3 hours of play, do you just every hour, every 20 minutes, like you said, or is that breaking the verse? I remember Guy said verisimilitude. We were loving that word last time when we were talking. Like, does that break the flow? What's your sweet spot?
It could depend. It's more of a vibe thing for me. I've run a lot of games now over the many years of a variety of different systems of different people from different continents and all kinds of stuff. I'll try to aim for about an hour and see how it's going. And if it's a 3-hour game and everybody's just like can't get a word in edgeways because they're still chatting at an hour point, and everybody's like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this. Like, I'm not gonna cut it dead and say no, we have to have a break now. I'll probably let it run to like the halfway mark, then we'll have a break, and then we'll have a second half. If it's a bit more languorous, people are, oh, what should we do? And I don't know, or you've just come to the end of a decent scene, or there's a clear choice to make, and people aren't really sure. It's like, okay, well, this seems like a good time to have a break. We'll take 5-10 minutes. You can chat amongst yourselves, get a drink, come for a break, whatever you need to do, and then we'll come back to it. So just feel how it goes.
So I'm going to take it a step back, right? You get the new people, they're sitting down at the table. You can give them the premise. How do you break the ice? Like, how do you just jump right into the story? Do you do the whole like, hi, my name is Gary and I like, cheese, or do you go into? I mean, I don't know if you like cheese or not, but how do you break that?
Yeah, see, there's an odd. There's all kinds of sets of behaviours you'll find at conventions because if you've not been to one before, you've got how you and your home group are, and you're into a whole new world. You're not in Kansas anymore once you go into the real world. So you'll meet all kinds of people, and in their head, the way they play potentially is how gaming's done because that's how they've always done it with their group, wherever they're from. And you get more people who've just generally know around. But there's people I see at the Sheffield conventions, of which there's a few that happen throughout the calendar, and they just don't. I must have known them for like 20 years, some of them, and they just don't have any social skills, should I say. Like, they don't say hello. They will come to just sit down, grab a character, and just start playing, and they're just into role playing, and that's all it is, which is fine if that's how they want to be. I just start by saying, hello, I'm Gaz. Even if I know everyone around the table, I just say, hello, I'm Gaz. This is what I'm playing. This is the premise. Here's some characters. I'll do a 5-minute spiel on how the rules work. I'll mention the safety tools. So you lot decide how you want to distribute the characters, or I can do it for you, roll randomly, whatever you want to do. Have a look at them. Any questions? And then at that point, normally, as we're going through, people say like, "Well, what's this do? Do we need a fighter?" What, like, just start asking questions, and you can just kind of have a bit of a natural conversation. Let that slowly just bumble along until you've got to the point where everybody happy, everybody got something. People ask rules questions and things, or what's this mean and what's that, and you just start asking questions and giving answers, and then you get to a point where you're comfortable. And then when I start the game, so once we're sure we're good, okay, let's get going. Let's introduce our characters. So even though I've already explained in brief what all the characters are, now they're all out on the table and people have forgotten because they've got their own one in front of them. I'll get each person to introduce their character to everybody else. And some people add real flourish and produce their own stuff. Some people just read what's on the back of the character sheet. Some people go, I'm good with a sword and a bow, and I have 5 strength. Some people just don't know what to do. And I was like, you can just give us a one-liner, like what you're wearing, what your clothes you're wearing, what do you look like, anything. Or another good technique that guys use sometimes is like which Hollywood movie actor's playing you in this.
Oh yeah, casting the character.
So I had a monk in his Feng Shui game that was Jason Statham or something, which was just,
I'm gonna make this thing bleed.
Immediately like moved everybody's perception of what the game was
My
going to be like.
halfling barbarian is Jason Momoa.
Yes, right. It's
That's
really
great.
small and bulky.
Yeah.
But that's like going through the procedure of just saying hello as a human being, first of all, because some people can't remember what they signed up for. She's like, I'm Gaz, we're playing this game. This is what it's about. Here's the characters. Here's the rules. Here's some questions. But within 10 minutes, you should be playing. And by that point, through the mechanism of describing the game and characters, you should have had some interactions with people.
So being in different conventions, recently you got to go to the Kraken convention in Germany.
The gaming retreat, yes.
The gaming retreat. And I've heard so much wonderful feedback about that. I saw some pretty cool pictures of you playing with some pretty cool people in a pretty cool like mansion castle. Tell me about that experience. Like, what makes that so magical and just really cool?
Magic.
Yeah, well, I've had to tell some of the people, some of the guys who go there are coming to Chaosium Con in the UK, which is happening this weekend, actually, at the time of recording. And I've had to explain to them, like, it won't be as good as the Kraken, because that was their first convention. They've already started at the top, and everything now was going to seem like a pale imitation. But to go back many years, for probably, I think it was 13 years it ran, there was a convention called Tentacles, which was in Bacharach. It was on the Rhine in this castle, Burgstahleck, which sits perched on a mountain overlooking the Rhine, snaking below, a beautiful venue. But it's a youth hostel. So it was good when we were all younger, because you could go and, it's dirt cheap. It was 99 euros for the weekend, and bottles of beer were like less than €1 and stuff, and all great. But it was like bunk beds, and the food was pretty basic, as you imagine from a youth hostel. So when that's kind of wrapped up, Fabian, who was the main organizer, like started looking around with some of his friends and said, like, well, we want a more grown up thing. So I have said gaming retreat is that's what Fabian calls it, because it's you don't have to be our age to go there, or my age certainly, but for an older, more refined audience, you might want a twin bedroom with ensuite, and you might want good food, and you might want just generally nicer surroundings and things like that. So I think it was about 10 years or so they happened across Schloss Neuhausen in Berger, which is out in the wilds of Brandenburg. For your geographically astute listeners, they can draw a line between Hamburg and Berlin on the map, and it's about halfway. So it's out in the middle of nowhere. It can be a little tricky to get to, but it is an old Schloss, which has been revamped, I guess, renovated to a certain degree. But it's lovely, yeah. So quite small. They did get over 100 people at one point, and that proved too many. Like the guys who run the convention were saying, like, they had every oven device available on all the time to try and cook to accommodate people. So it's down to about 60 or 80 people now, but it's a few days. You can book extra days. Like I said, the accommodation's probably 3-star B&B or something. You're in a reasonable twin bedroom mostly. Most of them are en suites. You get 3 meals a day. You get coffee and cake at 4 o'clock. There's a big beer fridge that is full of soft drinks and all kinds of different beers, and there's wine and what have you, and there's tea and coffee on tap.
Time for afternoon tea.
You basically pay a price up front and then it's free at the point of use, which is great because then there's no like, oh, should I get around? Should I ask people if they want a drink? Am I going to end up paying for lots of things? Do I have to carry euros around me because I'm not used to carrying that? I'm used to pounds or dollars in your case or whatever. So when you're actually there, everybody can just do whatever. So that's a great way of just like, you get it from the gaming table. Who wants a drink? Who wants anything? Because you can grab it and bring it back to the table. So that's a great community atmosphere. And it just over the years engendered a good feeling of just bonhomie because it's in these wonderful surroundings out in the middle of nowhere. You're surrounded by forest and fields. Certainly the spring and summer one, if the weather's good, you can sort of drag the beer tables outside and play out on the lawn under the shade of a tree or something like that in the open air. All wonderful. There's extracurricular activities like axe throwing and stuff like that. There's guests of honor normally once or twice a year. So the most recent one had Ken and Robin. You know, the Ken and Robin podcast.
Yeah.
I mentioned Robin, name checked him earlier. So they were there. They did some seminars. I ran a game for them. You know, you can just hang out and chat to them.
Yeah.
Because of the small nature of it, unlike a big thing like Gen Con, we have guests that you might have to queue up just to get an autograph or see briefly. In those kinds of surroundings, you can just be sat on the sofa and see them there, plonk yourself between them and go, so then, Gumshoe, here's what I have a problem with, or whatever it get a conversation going. Fabian tries to keep about 30% of the attendance new to keep a fresh blood all the time. So you're constantly mixing things up and getting new people involved. And an ethos of the retreat is that you contribute something. So it manages to keep going and is so good because some people contribute. So in my case, I run lots of games and sometimes do seminars or whatever else as well. But I provide a lot of gaming content. I think between me, Guy, and a friend, Andrew, who went last time, we're providing something like 15% of the games at the convention or something because we just ran a lot each. Yeah. Someone else his job might be, I'm going to just keep the beer fridge stocked up or help with the game bookings on the website or, you know, just stuff like that. Like if you can contribute a little bit, you get the Kraken and, well, you know, you're welcome with open arms. If you're the sort of person who turns up and moans about things or says, I paid for this, where's this, where's that? It's like, well, you're paying for what you get, you're paying quite a small amount of money, and it works because people help each other out and join in. And if you get on board with that, then you'll have an amazing time. And there's a great wealth of different games. There's quite often famous guests there or others. Just lovely surroundings, great food, accommodation, just really good. It's like a little mini holiday that you have. And I've been to every one bar when there was COVID. I think there's some people went, about 10 people went, but I couldn't get out there because there's no flights. But aside that, I've been to all the Krakens because they're amazing.
It sounds amazing. You've sold me. Yeah. Like maybe one day I can be the new blood and I can go. But, you know, Ken and Robin, I love those guys. I really appreciate Robin's book for Laws of Good Game Mastering. Like that changed the way I look at my players. Getting to talk to Ken, I think I talked to him like 4th of July of last year. And what a fun guy. Like just a lot of good humor, he almost got me to love horror games, which is the opposite genre of anything that I love. I would much rather stay away from the horror genre, but he convinced me that horror often invokes fear, which is a natural human emotion that can actually be used very well in a game. And he does it very well. So yeah, very cool. Okay. This is a multi-day event, right? This is like all-inclusive gaming event is what I'm thinking of in my head. It just sounds fantastic. What would you suggest for people who are running multiple games, right? You got, I used to coach swimming back in the day. And I remember like the next lesson would come in and then the next lesson would come in and you're like, all right, time to get ready for the next one. And even if you love what you're doing, it can get overwhelming. It can get exhausting. What would be your suggestions to somebody who's running multiple games like you and Guy, 15% of the Kraken games that are going on at a convention?
Yeah, know your limits. So if it's your first convention, and some places offer like you get a free ticket or you get a free accommodation if you run X number of sessions or whatever. But if it's your first time doing that, don't like sign up to run 7 slots of games because you might find out that after 2, your voice has gone. You're sick of standing up and you're just sleepy. So there's that sort of element. So you have to like build up to it a little bit, but it depends what excites you. So for me, I'm more energized generally when I'm jamming than when I'm a player because you're always on. Like all the players are always asking you stuff. There's things to think about. You're trying to lay out the next parts of whatever's going to happen in the story, or reincorporating things the players said, or whatever it is. But you have to think about something, so you'll be going. And then when you finish, you might crash a bit and go, "Oh, just need to relax now." So it's the Furnace or Seven Hills, or there's some of the Sheffield conventions, for example. That's 5 slots. It's 3 on one day, 2 on the next, and I run the Saturday night and the Sunday afternoon because I found that typically that's when basically the players are more sleepy because everybody's getting a bit tired by that point. But also, it's better for me if I'm in charge. Like some GMs have been suboptimal, but I get my I get my energy from it. In Myers Briggs term, I'm ESTP or ESTJ, I can't remember which, but I get my energy from other people. That's what the extrovert the E means in that Myers Briggs term.
Yeah.
If you're an I something, then it means you need time away. So if you're that kind of personality, you'll want to book in slots where you do nothing. For me, I'm happy to fill my entire calendar with playing or running, and I'll just do it all. So you need to know your own limits and get some kind of expectation there. Make sure the games you're running is something you want to do. Because I'm quite prolific now and I've been doing it for so long, people try and ask for things or whatever. So it will be more tiring if you're running something that you've had to learn new or you're not really that bothered about learning, really. So pick games that you actively want to run, which can be tricky because sometimes you have to submit games far ahead of when the convention is. And by the time it comes round, there've been 18 Kickstarters and you've got like a whole different set of other things that you're interested in now. So it can be a bit tricky, but definitely run things you want to do. Don't over tire yourself. Don't be afraid of having slots off when you don't play or run. You just go and lie down or just peruse the trade hall or just go and sit out for a bit, read a book or chill out. So if you've never been before, that's going to be a bit trial and error. And then you have to know your own personality a little bit as well. If you get energized by other people, you might want to fill out your calendar and just do everything all the time and make the most of it. If you know that's not you, don't try and fake it till you make it, because GMing will make it extra hard. You can go and play all the slots, which will be less tiring than trying to run some of them as well.
I would be the I definitely need time away. I need slots. I need to go sit under the shade tree
Yeah.
at the Kraken. Cool. So there's a question that I like to ask, and I usually submit this ahead of time. So I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sure you're going to love that. Your GMing skills are going to be coming out here. It's a phrase activity that was given by Eric Newsom. So he used to be an NPR news consultant, formerly NPR. I think he does his own creative works now. But the idea is creating a 10-word phrase that really accompanies the core of what we've been talking about today: conventions, people, connecting with others, learning new games, finding new games, pacing yourself, not drawing yourself out. If you were to give our listener a 10-word phrase, it can't be less than 10 words, it can't be more than 10 words. It forces the economy of words. What would that 10-word phrase be?
Going to conventions can be fun, but pace yourself.
Going to conventions can be fun, but pace yourself. Was it Shakespeare that said, "Know thyself, and to the rest of the world be true"?
Know thyself.
I probably butchered Shakespeare just now.
I'll just say yes, and we'll
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of different events, right? So that's why you asked you initially, like, have you been to anything in your game store? Because a local event, like a one-day thing or a couple of games or one game a day at a game store compared to Gen Con, are vastly different things. So saying I'm going to a convention can mean a whole host of different things depending on where you're going. So if you do go to a Gen Con, really, like, I would say that they're not necessarily the greatest place to try games. That's more of a trade show, or going to meet people that are writers or guests that you might be interested in, or perusing what's available, or seeing some of the small press people who are going to have a stall there. You can discover things you've never seen before, but you're going to be on your feet for a lot of the day, and you're going to be bustling about, going to different parts, and like games might be in a different hotel than where the convention is, and it's going to be a mad event, and you're going to be wedged in with a lot of people cheek by jowl. So that's one thing. But if you try a local game day or like a weekend con with maybe 50 or 100 people, that's going to be a lot more chilled out, and you might just be able to go and play some games, and there won't be a trade stall necessarily or anything else to do apart from play games. But that's a way of getting some experience of other people in other games. So depending on what you want to achieve, you might want to pick what event is it you're going to, because they're different experiences.
So vetting the event to match where you're at, or the listener, it can be fun, but pace yourself. Is there anything else that we're missing here? Like, is there anything that you feel like we haven't touched on, or anything that you feel like the person listening needs to know about conventions, gaming, anything?
Oh, wow. I've got 200 podcasts behind me, so brace yourself. There could be
I'm
great
ready.
many things. Yeah, so don't be frightened of going. I like try and speak to some people beforehand. So, for example, there's a convention called Furnace, which happens in Sheffield. I've mentioned a couple of times. That's on its 20th anniversary in October, and they're opening up another room in the venue. So there's going to have 8 new tables and loads more people. And there's a Discord, so there's people asking like, "Oh, I want to run a game, but I'm frightened. What do I do? Like, what do people want to see?" Unfortunately, there's quite a welcoming community, so people can say, "Well, you can run whatever you want," and there's this and that, and so you can get involved in an event before you turn up is one thing. So ask around and just get then. Like, people always seem nervous. People will say, "Oh, I've only ever run for my home group," like you've said. There's a guy did that at a recent convention I went to. And he brought D&D because he thought that would be the game to run. And it just so happens at those sort of Sheffield events, that's about the only game that doesn't run most of the time. It's usually anything that's not D&D. But he played or ran some sessions, and I'll just give you his experience from my point of view because it might inform other people. But he ran 3 sessions out of 5, and he found that a lot. And as I've sort of indicated, that probably is. You probably need to pull back on that. Don't worry about what game should I bring that other people want, although you can ask to get a vibe so that you're providing something that probably people are be interested in. You don't have to tie yourself to something. I could give him some advice on the characters. So, like, one of my good convention tips for D&D, Savage Worlds, whatever, like, don't be first level or starting characters. That's the temptation. People often do that, and they're quite often rubbish characters that aren't very capable. And for D&D, like, it doesn't really start till 3rd level anyway. So if you're not running
Correct.
like be 3rd or 4th level, maybe 5th. But then
5th is my fave because that's when the
Yeah.
fighter gets the extra attack.
That's when you can see a fireball or an extra attack or something.
Fireball! Fireball! Fireball!
So
Yeah,
that might be an interesting one. But that's where I pitched that. Same for Savage Worlds, I'd say be seasoned. So your characters have got 4 or 5 advances. Just make the characters capable and be able to do stuff. Don't feel like you have to use the starter ones that come in the book because that'll be easiest. Tailor your characters to what you're playing, as I said. And the guy that I've talked about also said afterwards, like, he just sort of pitched the games wrong and the way he'd set it up, and he'd done it so that if his home game were running it, we're playing it rather, they'd have had an amazing time. But meeting new people is like his eyes were open, the scales fell like, oh right, okay, people don't care about that, and people want to know about this, and I had to sort of say yes for the players you had this time. Maybe next time it'll be different. So some of the things you learned, I think, were general kind of hints and tips you can pick up just by exposing yourself to other people. And others were, well, for this group, that worked out that way. But if you'd been running it for me, I'd have been happy with what you put in or that kind of thing. So have a bit of flexibility. You have to go in open-minded. Don't be frightened of having the open table rule if you're a player as well. If something's not for you, don't feel like, oh, it's my first time here. I have to sit here for 4 hours with these 5 people I'm not really getting on with. I don't like the system. So I just feel uncomfortable. Just say, look, I'm really sorry. This isn't for me. Like, I'm sure they'll have a great time, but I need to go. And it can be awkward, especially if you're not, extroverted or whatever else. But like, do you want to spend 4 hours there? Is the other thing. That's the calculation to do in your head. Is like, is it all right having a bit of slight embarrassment to walk away and then have 3 hours of my life back, or am I just going to sit here quietly and have a terrible time?
I'm hoping people are giving themselves permission by hearing you say that. It is okay to step away.
And it's why I like to use, and guys, well, like, we use the open table. So the GM said it then, like, you are a social secretary quite often as a GM, and people will look to you for their cues if it's an awkward player or when you can have breaks or things like that. We're all adults, we're all grown up. So, I mean, there might be some younger people listening, and feel free to join in as well, kids. You're all welcome at my table. But, like, if you need a break as well in a game, just say, sorry, I just need a comfort break. But no one's going to say, no, you have to sit there and, like, cross your legs and try not to wet yourself while we come in. Like,
hold it in.
the thing I've seen historically is too many times when people are playing to these unwritten rules that are socially it's just humans. Just ask. Like, you've all got permission to ask for things if you need it. or not be there if you don't want to be, or in a break you could ask the GM and say, look, the pacing, I'm not really getting enough here. Maybe we maybe get through a little bit more or something, or all that kind of stuff. So yeah, make sure you stay hydrated.
Steve, hydrate me.
Make sure you shower. It's a bit of a cliche, but there are people, I'm probably popping into UK Games Expo, which is a big trade show here, in a couple of weeks. They have like toiletries dotted around the main hole, like deodorant and things like that, because there's some people who just haven't worked out that Sammy the Soap Bar is your friend. It's like but these shouldn't be things we have to tell people. But if it gets one person to realise that maybe after you spent 4 days in a packed hall, you might be a little bit ripe, perhaps have a shower or stuff like that. That's probably helping. The old classic was the 3-2-1 rule, where it's 3 hours of sleep, 2 meals, and 1 shower. I'm at the stage of life where it needs to be more than 3 hours of sleep and probably more than 2 meals, to be fair. But definitely 1 shower. So there's just self-care stuff. Make sure you've got a bottle of water with you. Don't be afraid to duck out of things. But like, you will meet new people, and some won't be to your taste potentially. And others will be. Like I've got lifelong friends I've met by going to conventions, and as a GM and as a player, I've picked up tips and hints and ways of playing and styles of presenting my game and stuff that I would just never have if I'd been on my own. You can see on the internet there's people who've, like, I've been playing for 40 years. I've run this D&D campaign for my friends, and we're ace. But if you've just played with the same 5 people for 40 years, I would say that you're probably not as well versed as someone who spent a year going to some conventions and playing with a bunch of different people in different games. You'll just pick stuff up. You'll just be sat there and the GM will do something and you'll think, oh, that's great. I'm going to steal that. That's an amazing idea, which you just wouldn't get otherwise. And, you might see some other things where, like, it's like someone holding up a dark mirror to you, and the GM will do something, you'll think, oh, I do that, and now I'm sat on this side of the table. That's not great, actually. I can improve upon that. That sort of thing. And as a player as well, you pick up things,
These are the things that we want, right? Like, this is just turning the part in our brain where maybe I wouldn't have asked that question. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I love self-care. It made me, honestly, I was thinking of doggy bags when people put like doggy bags out in front of their house instead of yelling at somebody for not picking up their dog's poo. They're like, hey, I'm just going to put the bag there and maybe they'll pick it up.
Right.
Maybe they'll do what they need to do. So that's a kind way to just say, hey, help everybody out. Let's all have a good time.
Other things like clean up after yourself.
Clean it up, clean it up, clean up the crap.
Like I've lost count of the number of times I get to a table or whatever, there's just coffee cups or soda cans or whatever lying around. It's like, come on, we're all adults. If you've eaten something, just take it with you, throw it in the trash. Like, what's wrong with you people? Like, so the great thing about conventions is anyone can go. The bad thing about conventions is anyone can go. So you will get some people who are a bit rude or lazy or forgetful or are in a rush, whatever it is. But if we all just try and be a little bit kind and help each other out, then everything's better for everyone. And that goes in the table. So I've got like player advice I give quite often. And for the Kraken, they put out in the email, there's like 10 top tips kind of thing. And it's stuff like playing up. So when another player's doing something, you describe in game how awesome that is, or that kind of thing. So, for example, you had a big strong barbarian or something, and you're trying to intimidate someone. My character might be going like, "Oh, you don't want to mess with him." The last town over, like, there's nothing left of the inn. Like, you better give him what he wants. Like, I'm not causing a problem, but if you upset him, then we're all in trouble, kind of thing. And that's just my way in character of making your character sound awesome.
Yeah.
So, just do little bits like that where you talk, if you're going to discuss a plan of how you're going to raid the corporate, whatever cyberpunk facility, like, you can do it in character. You don't have to talk about it outside. You can all get in your character and kind of add bits of flavor about revealing stuff about your character or describing the world or whatever it is. It's all good stuff. And these are all little bits and pieces you pick up of like ways of improving the game for everybody's benefit.
What was the last character you played that you just fell in love with because you liked how others built you up and how you got to play it?
I don't know about the last one. An example I can give is a guy who you've mentioned a couple of times. He runs Mouse Guard occasionally. He's had a hiatus from it, but we've got him to play it again recently. And he has a standard set of mice. So for people who don't know, it's anthropomorphic mice fighting against nature. So the enemies are generally weasels or a snake or a bear or something, and you're just little mice. And you're fighting against your nature, because mice generally want to run away and hide and do things like that. But you're the god mice and you're big and strong. And my particular one that I always get is kind of like the hardened, grizzled veteran who's seen too much and he's only got one eye. So it's quite often this, another one's like the young, like really sort of enthusiastic new recruit who's like, yeah, come on, I've seen things, man. You haven't been there. When the owl came out of the darkness, shadow by the moon. So I always have a great time with that. And there's another friend of ours, Neil Gow, who wrote Duty and Honor and Beta Quarters. He sometimes plays in one of the convention games, and similarly, he gets that character. So Guy always finds that amusing that we both play that grizzled veteran in a slightly different way, but the vibes are there every time. It doesn't matter which one of us picks him up. And
That's
people
awesome.
tend to buy into that, so the young, enthusiastic mouse is all kind of like, doesn't get it, so he's always trying to cheer me up and go like, "Oh no, you don't need to be that. Maybe we'll win this time." I was like, "Just lost too many mice." You don't understand. And so you can have those little character interactions just by having different perceptions of the world, and that's Mouse Guard lends itself to that, I found.
That has always been in my back pocket of games that I want to play. So maybe I'll keep a lookout, and maybe I'll get to be the grizzled veteran next time.
Yeah,
Who
well,
knows?
we'll get Guy to run it maybe on the channel.
Yeah.
And he can be a guest player.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I know you're like, I could do a monologue forever. I could listen forever. Everything you've shared is really great. Is there anything else that you feel people should know about conventions or playing with others?
I just say be generous with others and don't. It's not as bad as you think it's going to be. If you're nervous, everybody will know. Like if you've not been to anything before, you always think, I don't know where anything is. I don't know who people are. Are they going to be mean to me? Just don't get it. I don't know what's going to happen. So there's always going to be a little bit of anxiety or something for some people. But it's good fun. I'd start at a small mid-level one. If you can find something that's maybe 50, 100 people, they're like a nice sweet spot. Just sign up for something cool that you want to try. Maybe don't run a game the first time you go. Maybe just play some things. If you're someone like yourself, you might want to not play all the slots. I'll just sign up for a couple of things, just one thing a day, and the rest of the time I'll chill out and chat to people. See if there's any social events, like the Sheffield conventions have a Friday night that's not part of the convention, but it's at the venue. So some people will turn up just to go to the pub and have a pie or whatever and hang out and just talk games. Ask people about their home campaigns or where they've come from or things like that. There's like basic questions you can ask, which will just get the chat going at the table, even if everybody else is just kind of like staring at the carry sheet and nobody wants to speak. You can try and initiate a conversation. You'll probably meet friends you'll see again. And if you end up going to the same event on a yearly basis or whatever it is, you'll see people, you'll end up with gamer friends who you don't chat to about anything else, or you probably don't know like what the wife's name is or anything like that. But you do know who the character was when you played Earthdawn last year and that kind of thing. So it's worth it for just the people you'll meet, and especially in the connected world we've got at the minute with online conventions or just being able to play online. You might meet someone at a convention and then, like we've just done there, where you say, "Oh, I really wanted to try Mouse Guard." And you go, "Okay, well, I can't do it here, but maybe in a couple of weeks or something, we can just do it over Zoom or whatever. We can have a game online." So it's a way of connecting with new people. You get to meet people from all around the world as well, generally, depending on the sort of event you go to. It's great for exposing yourself to, like I said, the indie games thing I quite like as well. If you go to bigger events like a UK Games Expo I'm going to, I presume Gen Con's the same. There's a whole an alley in inverted commas they call it, but it's 3 or 4 streets, if you will, within the NEC. They're all independent publishers. You've all got their little things going on, all little handcrafted games and whatever, and just going around there for half a day or something and chatting to people and seeing what they've got, what they're up to. Really interesting stuff. You'll see all kinds of things you've not seen before. And if you go to bigger events, there might be goodie bags, you might get freebies, you might get demos. There'll be all kinds of other things that aren't games but are related to it. Like, I don't know whether you had it in the UK, but we had a game called, a TV show called Nightmare, where some guy wore a helmet who was one part of the team and had to go around a dungeon, and the other players were all kids would be like step left, no, you're the left, step forward, and try and guide them around this dungeon that was like really bad CGI and stuff like that. It's probably a very British thing, but they've like done a live version of that at Games Expo and that sort of thing, or they'd have Viking reenactments. There'll be all kinds of things. So yeah, pick a convention you like the look of. Don't be frightened. Go in with the level of engagement you want in terms of doing games, and don't be frightened about if it's not for you when you get there, or a particular session or whatever it is. Don't be frightened. It's going like, it's not for me. I've tried it though, and don't let that put you off other conventions. You can always go somewhere else. The mid-level ones are good for games. The big ones are good for all the splendor and just going for the event itself. There's middle-sized ones that do a bit of both. Maybe don't try a residential one if you're not sure about it. Maybe just find some one-day thing. But residential ones can be good too, just for hanging out. Take yourself something to do, whatever your hobby is. I know people who like knitting or any kind of thing. They'll just kind of hang out, more or less listening to the games, doing their thing, but not taking part in them.
My wife loves knitting, so maybe she can come along and knit with the knitters.
That's right. And another thing that the Kraken, for example, is very good. Obviously, they have a board game library. I know that Games Expo and others have that as well. So if you just want to grab your friends, if you haven't managed to hang out, or you've met some new friends, or you want someone to show you a game, you can quite just go and find a table, play a board game, chat, find out what the people have been doing, what else is on. That's a really good activity as well. There's tons to do. I think it's worth getting involved. Like I say, you'll improve how you play in Gem. You'll possibly meet new people that you'll make new gaming friends, or just people to hang out with occasionally, or play something online with. You might pick up new games you've not heard of or seen, or something to investigate later. You'll hear about new Kickstarters or indie stuff that you've never seen before. There'll be little tokens of memento or dice you can buy, or all kind of ephemera that there seems to be these days, with dice holders or towers or a bunch of game-related things that never used to exist but now seem to be. There's a whole cottage industry producing all kinds of stuff there.
Toilet paper with D20s just printed on them. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen like D20 lamps, I've seen D20 money banks, there's all kinds of stuff. There's cosplay elements you can go to at some places, there's shows you can go to, there's talks, seminars, workshops. There's a whole world out there waiting for you. So pick something and give it a go. And it probably helps to take a friend. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I can go to events on my own. I'm that confident, and I've been to enough now. But it's usually better if a few of you go and try something out together, so you've got backup. And if nothing else, you can take an emergency game, as I call them, in your backpack, and you can just find someone play amongst yourselves if you have to.
Awesome. So a whole new world out there. People might want to jump into your world. There might be some people listening that they're like, I heard that he does this thing called the unconventional GMs. He obviously plays a lot of games. Where can people find you, Gaz, if they want to learn more about what you do and what you offer as far as creating content and enjoying this hobby?
Well, thank you for asking. Unconventional Gems is it's about a year old now, something like that. That's me and Guy. We run games in about 2 hours or less with pace, vim, and vigor. So this is one of our things where people say they can't run a game in 4 hours, or it's impossible to play this game as a one shot. Well, we view that as a challenge. So if you go to YouTube, look for Unconventional GMs, you'll find all kinds of sessions we've done, mainly one shots, some extended campaigns, things like that. But there we try and that's all raw gaming. If you see us, that's how we game normally. There's no pretense, there's no script. This is just us having fun with a variety of different people. We get all kinds of different guests on. So definitely check out UGMs. Also, I'm one half of What Would the Smart Party Do, the UK's premier RPG podcast. There's about 200 episodes on there. Interviews with all kinds of designers. We've got advice, we've got walkthroughs, we've got general chats like this, where we just pick a topic, and me and Ben, who has, if anything, more experience than me in games, we'll chat about any kind of topic, from conventions to how to GM to how to play better, all that kind of stuff. So a wealth there. You can find me on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, as at @the_smart_party, and you can also search me on Blue Sky. I'll actually have to check what my handle is on there, but if you look for Gaz, you'll definitely find me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Evil Gaz at bsky.social.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that all the links are in the episode show notes, including the unconventional GMs. People have already listened to Guy by the time they listen to you, and you will be fan favorites for sure. So thanks for your time today, Gaz, and I hope to talk to you sometime soon. Thanks for being here.
Very kind. Thanks for the invite, and we look forward to dragging you onto the EGMs at some point to play a game.
I can't wait. It'll be a dream. So remember, kids, listen to Papa Gaz. Take a shower, stay hydrated, and go sign up for a tabletop gaming convention where you can have a great time with friends and maybe make some new friends. Friends. Please hit like or subscribe if you liked what you heard today. And if you listen on Apple Podcast or Spotify, give the CTG 5 stars and a review. And may you keep having fun as you continue to have a great time with friends and tell amazing stories through tabletop role-playing games. Bye-bye.